Hello. Here we are live from Eagle Eye Broadcasting Studio at O'Neill High School. We are here tonight to talk a little bit about our modified learning plans. We're all sporting some pretty fancy face masks tonight, so we're excited to be visiting. And we have, over the summer, since March, when we had to close our schools due to COVID-19, been working on what we call a modified learning plan. And we have talked to many experts from the Department of Education, from our local health department, numerous other schools across the state, and organizations of schools. And we have come up with what we feel are workable learning plans designed to keep our staff and students safe. So we are going to just share a little bit about those today. So we recognize it's not perfect, and we ask that you understand that and know that we will likely make some modifications as we move forward based on new information and practical experiences as we go through the year here. So you can find our modified learning plans for each building on our homepage. That's at www.o'neillpublicschools.org, and then you can click on the Modified Learning Plan article. I want to talk a little bit today about the risk dial. The North Central District Health Department has been incredibly helpful as we maneuver this COVID-19 pandemic, and they have come up with a risk dial that can be found at their homepage. That's at www.ncdhd.ne.gov. As you can see by the risk dial, it's made up of 4 risk level colors. Happily, we see the arrow today in their updated risk dial pointing in the green area, just by a sliver, but it's green. That means there's a low risk. Low or stable risk doesn't mean that there's no risk. It means that we still need to take precautions. We're going to be implementing precautions all year long so that we can remain in an uninterrupted in-person learning environment status. We were in yellow, according to the North Central District Health Department's risk dial last week. That was the moderate risk level. That means there was increasing disease spread or lack of resources that warranted enhanced precaution to provide uninterrupted in-person learning. The third color on our risk dial is orange, which means there is an elevated risk of disease spread. That means that we have had further disease spread or that a lack of resources warrant enhanced precautions. In that case, we may be in person or we may be doing some hybrid learning. And red is certainly a color that it will not be our friend. That means we are at the pandemic level, that we have active disease spread, and that warrants major changes to our traditional educational delivery. I want to talk first about masks. As I mentioned, we have on these wonderful masks tonight that sport our Eagle Pride. If we started school tomorrow with the risk dial at green, that means masks would be recommended, but not required, of all our staff and students. We did send out mask opt-out forms in the mail this week to all of our students. If we are green, students do not need to sign an opt-out form in order to be maskless. Only in yellow is this form necessary. We do want parents to understand that if your child is not wearing a mask, he or she may be asked to social distance to a greater degree than children wearing masks. In the event of a positive case in his or her classroom, he or she may need to quarantine longer than other children, depending on the circumstances. I mentioned that just because we're green doesn't mean we aren't going to be taking precautions. There will be many universal precautions used all year long this year. The first one actually involves our parents. We are asking our parents to screen their child each day, take their temperature, check for flu-like symptoms, including fever, cough, shortness of breath, and if any of those things are present, do not send your child to school. If they're feeling ill err on the side of keeping them home. Our schools will be taking temperatures upon arrival in their homerooms, at lunch, and as needed throughout the day. If your child has a temperature of 100.4 or greater, they'll be taken to an isolation room, and they should then be picked up within 30 minutes of receiving a call from school. We will work with the parents then on talking about when it's safe for them to return to school. All students will be using their own water bottles this year. Our drinking fountains will not be available. We will be doing extreme sanitizing in our buildings all year long. We'll be sanitizing door handles, restrooms, desks. Those will all be sanitized frequently during the school day, and deep cleaning will happen each day after school dismisses. We have upgraded our HVAC filters to a higher MERV to try and filter out some of the COVID-19. And we've purchased individualized plastic desk dividers that will be available to separate students when they're seated at their desks and not socially distanced. Students, we are going to try very hard to have students not sharing computers, iPads, calculators, and other classroom materials so that we can reduce the chance of spread.
Right, here's Mr. York here with some elementary updates. I'm going to start with some general things. Our entry and exit times for the building are going to change this year. This is district-wide. It's going to be 7:40 a.m. The doors that you will use for your students will be the preschool. Will come in door 14, and we'll have nice signs that are out in front of all the doors so you know where to come. That's the preschool door where you would normally drop off your preschool children. Kindergarten students will come in door 2. That's the kindergarten hallway where you typically would pick your kindergartner up anyways. First and second graders, we're going to come in door 1, which is the main entrance. That's where you would normally during a non-COVID time be dropping and picking up your students. Third and fourth graders will come in door 6. That's probably going to be the hardest one to find. That's on the east side of the building, on the northeast side. And then fifth and sixth grade will come in door 4, which is on the northwest side. And as I said, there will be big signs out in front of the school that has exactly where each one of these doors are. And don't be afraid to call. And we will also put a map up on the school Facebook and school Facebook page and website. Breakfast, I'm sure that when you heard 7:40, you thought, oh my gosh, will my child have time to eat breakfast? Because oftentimes we do have students do that. We will eat breakfast in classrooms, and that will be served from 7:40 to 8 a.m. And lunch will be only with grade level peers, and there will be only 4 students at a table. When we go to yellow, that changes a little bit, and we will go forward with that in another update later on. Hopefully we can remain green for quite a while. Recess is for grade level peers only, and they will be kindergartners are just with kindergartners. Classroom procedures, like I said, we're in green, so our students will be with their homerooms for most of the day. The only time this wouldn't happen would be during SPED, HAL, Title I, and ELL services, and for some reading groups. For specials, which is PE, music, library, those types of classes, they're with their homerooms only, and they will travel to all of those classes except for art and guidance. And then library use. This is something our library gets used quite often, and I think it's very important for everybody to understand that we want to give our students the opportunity to check out books as often as possible. So in green, the library remains open, and it'll work about how it normally does. The biggest difference is when kids come in, they're going to sanitize. Social distancing will be required. And then books, when they checked out, will be required to be checked in to the book depository rather than handed to the adult that's working there, so we can make sure that it goes through the process of getting cleaned before getting put back up on the shelf. Now, Mr. Fisher.
I just have a few back-to-school reminders. We do know that fall sports right now are a go, and practices will begin on Monday, August 10th for grades 9 through 12. We do remind you to make sure you have your sports physical and required documents turned in before that first practice. A big change this year is going to be laptop checkout for grades 8 through 12 will be Monday and Tuesday, August 10th and 11th. Students will come to the school using the schedule that was sent in the mail this last week. And so if you didn't get a schedule or if you're not sure about your time, you can call the office and we can sure let you know. And we'll probably send out a reminder over the weekend to let you know, especially if there's any changes. But for right now, those schedules are pretty well set. You need to make sure, students, that you've watched the laptop checkout video and completed the checkout form, and that's before you come to check out your laptop. The video and the form are located on the school website, www.o'neillpublicschools.org. So when you come to laptop checkout, you're going to need to bring your $15 laptop fee and your completed student handbook and permission signature form. So even if you've watched the video and completed the form, you need to bring those two things with you, your $15 fee and your student handbook permissions and signature form with you, so you can proceed through the checkout process. And those forms are also located on the school website. At this time, students have been issued a school locker in the hallways. We have worked to spread students out as best as we can with the number of lockers that we have. So there'll be a little bit of a change to that, and we'll explain that when students come to school. And on that first day of school, we will not be able to have back to school assemblies in big mass groups, so we're going to have a little bit different schedule that day, and I'll be sharing that out with parents and students here as we edge closer to the start of the school year. Entering and exiting the school is going to look a little different, just like the elementary, some modifications. Our doors, again, open the same time, 7:40 a.m., and they're going to lock at 8 o'clock, just like they have in the past. 7th and 8th graders will use the main student entrance. And so there's been some misunderstanding about that out there. I apologize for any miscommunication. Our junior high students are going to enter in the main student entrance. 9th and 10th graders, you will enter in the activity entrance. And 11th and 12th graders, you'll enter in the same doors, the northwest entrance, same doors as you did last year. It's important that we respect that expectation so we can keep students separated both when you come to school and at the end of the day as well. If students arrive after 8 o'clock, you're going to need to enter through the main student entrance. So the only time students that aren't in junior high come through that main student entrance is anytime throughout the day. If you go to a doctor appointment or anything like that, anytime after 8 o'clock, all students will need to come through that main student entrance. When you get to school, again, we're going to take that temperature. You're either going to report to your first period class or to the cafeteria for breakfast if you have time. Breakfast is served from 7:40 to 8 o'clock, just like the elementary. School starts at 8 o'clock. So we ask that there's no gathering in the halls or commons areas. And again, we will take those temperatures when you get to your first period class. Try to have that done by 8 o'clock. Our teachers are going to be on hand earlier this year to help accommodate that. And then we'll do that also midday and or around lunch, as Mrs. Shane alluded to. Breakfast and lunch, we are going to limit the number of students at each table. When we're in green, students can choose where they sit, but we will limit the number at those tables. When in yellow, students will have an assigned seating area and will be the same each day. Social distancing will be in effect at all times, no matter the color, and we will require more space during breakfast and lunch. So we're really going to spread students out as best as we can, and then obviously the disinfecting of tables and chairs between lunches, as we have always done. Every student will use hand sanitizer both entering and exiting class each period, each day, and the teacher will administer that. And our classroom procedures, if we're in green, obviously that's the best place to be. We're going to have an 8-period day, and students will move from class to class. Yellow, students will move from class to class as well, but we'll have some increased spacing, and masks will be required for all students and staff unless parents have signed that opt-out form. Then obviously in orange, that's going to be our modified learning. Students will attend school half days and will be assigned small groups to one staff member. Students will remain in that same small group during their half day of school. They will not move throughout the building. Masks are required, and there is no opt-out option when we are in the orange phase.
All right, well, we appreciate your tuning in and listening tonight. We plan to do these weekly updates Wednesdays, hopefully at 7 o'clock each Wednesday. You can tune in. We'll check out the dial and hope that we're green every week. And then we'll probably have a pretty short update, just reminding everyone that they need to be safe and try and stay safe, socially distanced. If we are in a different risk level, we will talk more in depth about what happens at that risk level. But good job for getting us back into green this week, something to celebrate as we move forward. Thanks again. Have a good night. Thanks, Mr. Fisher. Thanks, Mr. York.
Thank you.
And thanks to Stadium Sports for the cool masks that we got to model tonight.